Hello, I'm Julia Walsh, and I'm really excited to share with you today some insights into a topic that is clearly affecting a lot of people. And it's also going to reveal a little bit in terms of what we do at Brand Medicine, tapping into big search query data, which those of you who have worked with us will know how passionate we are about this data set as an unbelievable source of insights into customers across any category in healthcare. So I'm just going to share with you um, a presentation on a topic that you personally may have even sought information online about. It's anxiety. So we did this little exploration in the Australian market, and there's just so much going on right now in the world that it's really interesting to kind of see how search query data acts as a reflection of our collective consciousness. And I thought, let's just have a little peek at how we're all feeling right now. Certainly, the data is quite active. There's nearly 1 million searches a month on the topic of anxiety alone by Australians. And this is across nearly 10,000 different questions. So that reflects there's quite a variety of information that people are seeking on this topic, and there's an extremely high volume of activity. And this is just Google, traditional Google results as well. So, if you take into account all of the other different platforms that people would be searching across, we know that there's well in excess of probably 11 million searches per year on this topic. And we take it quite seriously when we study this kind of information because behind every single one of these questions is someone sitting on the edge of their seat or chewing their nails, worried about the information that they're going to receive back to the healthcare related query that they're putting into this search engine. So when you think about population of less than 30 million and an activity level on the topic of anxiety alone, and this is not accounting for depression or specific symptoms of anxiety that don't include that word in the query, there is quite a lot going on here in terms of people not feeling really grounded and happy and secure at the moment. So what I would just say to people who are looking for advice on this is don't feel alone. That's one takeaway. Certainly, we can see from the data as well that the peak activity is actually happening between 3 and 4 in the morning. So that indicates that people are feeling this and then they're waking up or they're not able to sleep and they're grabbing that phone that's on the nightstand beside them and they're actually seeking information online. And that's one way that they can feel like they can get content that's going to reassure them and hopefully help them get control over a feeling that is quite out of control for them. We can see a lot of new people coming into this category because they would start with the question, what is anxiety? And that has recently actually increased over 30% in terms of the volume of that, with about 4,500 times a month people seeking to understand that. So those are not people who are long-time anxiety sufferers. These are new people who are coming into this category and starting to undertake their preliminary research to understand what's going on. So overall, what is happening for these millions of people? How are they asking their questions and what is the kind of information that they're seeking? The dominant mood that we could detect from the data is distress, fear, and urgency. The strongest emotional signals that came through is fear that something is really wrong with them right now. And that's been the trigger for the search query. There's confusion about what they're feeling as to maybe it could be something else. There's certainly a desire for understanding exactly what's going on and putting a framework around it that defines it, like what is the diagnosis? How do they validate what's happening for them? And an urgency as well to stop the symptoms so that they can get on with their day. And that reflects that these experiences that they're having are quite crippling if it's happening to them during the day, or at nighttime, of course, it's impacting their sleep, which, as we saw with that high activity in the middle of the night. And that, of course, has a flow on effect to everything else in the rest of your life, drinking more coffee, which makes you more anxious, not feeling like you're well rested makes you more anxious. And so there's this kind of vicious cycle that people are going into. And we also saw a hope for immediate relief coming through. They're hanging their hope on different solutions. Overall, people are seeking to understand what is happening to me. And the biggest practical need in the data was not just treatment, it was interpretation of the experience that the searcher was having. Online research is also often triggered by physical alarms in this category. The data reveals that anxiety has been experienced as a body problem, not just a mental state. And the kind of symptom clusters that came through in the query data were breathing distress, cardiac fears. Am I having a heart attack? This is causing chest pain. We're seeing impact on blood pressure and heart flutters. Gastrointestinal distress was evident as well. And we also saw female-specific symptom framing that included people experiencing anxiety postpartum or even during pregnancy. People are also reporting other symptoms such as shaking, trembling, and dizziness, and of course, that sleep-related distress. After generic anxiety or generalized anxiety that people are experiencing, we saw another theme coming through around social anxiety. There's a sort of wanting to understand the symptoms and self-diagnose, as well as using tests that they could find online to validate if this is what they're experiencing. And then, of course, those questions, how can they take control of these symptoms that they're having by seeking that research online and those solutions online. The rising queries that are coming through are things around self-help. And this could be because people are feeling challenged financially. As we know, the cost of fuel has gone up, the cost of living has gone up in Australia, interest rates keep rising. And so it's harder to go and afford to go to see a therapist or to take time off work even to go and seek help. So people are trying to take things into their own hands. So we've seen meditation techniques for anxiety, as an example, increase 4,100%. We've seen anxiety coping strategies also increase 450%. These search intent themes within the self-help cluster coming through included breath work, meditative approaches, somatic and self-regulation techniques, and other therapeutic approaches. So these themes are suggesting that these users want solutions that offer immediate calming methods, which combined with the previous insights makes a lot of sense. Self-guided techniques, non-stigmatizing solutions, because for people stepping into this category for the first time and admitting that they're feeling anxious and concerned that they might have anxiety, they are also needing to overcome the stigma with mental health challenges. And they're looking for something that they can use at home quickly and cost effectively. We saw a distinct natural product theme coming through where people are looking for safe and natural and non-prescription alternatives. These are the specific alternatives that we saw people searching for. And this reflects the sentiment cluster themes around caution relating to prescription medications, a desire for fewer side effects where there's an assumption that natural therapies will have fewer side effects, self-directed wellness where people are seeking to take control themselves of the patient journey and particularly the treatment journey. And we also saw an overlap in sleep support, relaxation, and anxiety management through the kinds of queries around the natural products. And then, unsurprisingly, there were also many queries seeking prescription medical intervention. These patients are actively seeking treatments as a priority across anxiety medication, and they're also referring to it as anti-anxiety medication, projecting what they're hoping will happen when they take it. Some of them are aware already of some certain types. So beta blockers for anxiety was one of the very high volume specific search queries around prescription products, and drugs for anti-anxiety, and of course, best anxiety pills, which is very much consumer language, people who don't have high health literacy will just simply post that. When they're asking for prescription medications, the specific medications that we saw being researched under the topic of anxiety included all of these. And the intent themes behind them were searching for the best option or the strongest option, understanding dosing, understanding how quickly it's going to work, understanding the side effects so they can make the risk benefit analysis themselves before they have a conversation with their doctor. And people also looking for medications that will treat both their anxiety and their depression together. So patients are then reading information online, and if we follow that query that I mentioned before around best anxiety pills, and these are often the type of questions that are asked by people who may be more vulnerable because they do have that lower health literacy. So they'll find information online and they will then take that brand choice into their own hands. So when we look at the AI overview to this specific response, we can see that it has highlighted Xanax as one of the top anxiety medications. So that's been presented to the reader as something that, well, Google has presented this to me as an option. Should I trust it? But Xanax as a brand is not available to buy in Australia. Yet we see so much activity specifically researching how to buy Xanax online. There are nearly 2,000 exchanges of, these questions for information on buying Xanax happening every single month in Australia, even though the product is not available here. And there was quite a broad range of different queries asked across those volume of questions, nearly 500, and they included queries looking to buy it online, how can I buy it without a prescription, looking to get it from Mexico or in Melbourne, and from Reddit, which is quite concerning. We know that there's been a lot of issues with counterfeit prescription medications across many categories, and particularly with Xanax. And that was highlighted and announced quite publicly in 2020 by the health department, where it was discovered that people were dying from taking Xanax, except that it wasn't actually Xanax, it was counterfeit medication. But here we are, 6 years later, and we can still see that the page one Google results still offer quite a number of options of online sources to buy Xanax, but is it real Xanax? Aside from the fact that they're accessing it without a prescription, which is of course an issue, they would be potentially taking it without the supervision of a healthcare professional, which is another issue. But, when we see digital rabbit holes like this, we know that this is putting patient safety at risk, even though this has been an issue for many years. It's continuing to be presented to them as options. And of course, when people take these medications and they think they're taking the brand name, this inflicts reputational damage on the brand. And it can take quite some time to do the detective work to figure out that what they took was not what it said was. So I'm sure that some of you who haven't worked with brand medicine before are starting to see how studying the real world digital information experience is highly valuable to illuminate the kind of digital rabbit holes that your customers could be going down and could be vulnerable to. So what, if anything, can we do about it? Well, the good news is there are quite a few things. First of all, analyzing search query data for your category and brand is a wonderful starting point because this reveals the needs, and particularly the unmet needs, the sentiment, and the language used. And you can leverage these insights in your communication strategy as well as to inspire tactics. Then examining the digital information experience of your stakeholders, so basically sitting in their seat and looking through their eyes at the kind of content that's coming back to them, as we just did with Buy Xanax, it illuminates what's really happening in a blind spot for a lot of brand teams. And it can actually explain some big category dynamics that are going on and impacting your commercial potential or impacting quality of use of medicines that you might not have been able to identify before. So for key questions, what we do is we then understand the content influencing those readers and confirm, are they finding the answers that they need, or are they getting more confused? And then quantitatively, we also like to measure real world digital share of voice on a topic. So this identifies exactly the most influential websites and allows the teams that we work with to focus their efforts on just auditing the few websites that have the most power and influence over the narrative in their particular category or in relation to their brand, so that misinformation can be removed and the opportunity to co-collaborate and co-create content on those websites with those publishers to ensure locally relevant, evidence-based and up-to-date content is on those sites. And then, where possible, establish pathways back to your own sites from these top sites. Because what we're finding with the most influential websites in the digital share of voice analysis that we do is that they're the websites that have been prioritized by AI to generate the answers offered in AI answer engines like Bing Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity, and all of the others. So it is really important to know which those websites are. And by doing this, we can overall improve the digital information experience for categories and for the brands that you want to represent. As I wrap up this analysis, very top line on the topic of anxiety, when I looked at the query data and I consider the scale of it, and we've got such a small population relatively to the volume of queries that people are asking about anxiety, that, when you're working with people around you and you're interacting with your neighbors and your community, just be kind. I think, if I was in HR right now, I would consider looking at this query data and knowing that it's very likely that a third of your team in your company are probably feeling this and doing this research and needing support. So that's kind of a bit of a final takeaway on this. Thank you so much for watching this little analysis. I'm the author of What We Really Asked Dr. Google. I'm really, really passionate about illuminating insights into the patient journey through studying search query data. We work in all different markets, in all different languages, and I also worked with an incredible team of people to publish the white paper, which is available for free on our website, AI Disruptions in Search. And we're really keen about staying up to date in this category and helping people clean up the internet for patients and the healthcare providers who treat them. Because, of course, as you know, doctors Google too. Any questions, feel free to get in touch.